Hello friends again, welcome back to Shadows of Revenge. First at all tell me, where are you from the world watching my video? This is a true story, so watch till end. My name is Lucas. The house had been standing longer than most marriages lasted. Brick by brick, it had survived wars, recessions, hurricanes, and the slow erosion of time. Lucas Bennett used to believe that meant something. That structures built with care endured. That if you restored something patiently enough, lovingly enough, it would reward you with permanence. That belief was already dying. On paper, Lucas had everything a man his age was supposed to want. At 55, his name carried weight in Charleston. Bennett Properties wasn't just a company. It was a signature etched into the city's skyline. Historic renovations, luxury developments, adaptive reuse projects that turned crumbling relics into landmarks again. $18.5 million in assets. Invitations that arrived before he asked. Doors that opened before he knocked. But wealth had never been the thing that kept him awake at night. Diane had. His first wife had been the axis of his life. Sharp, warm, endlessly patient. Cancer took her slowly and without apology, draining her over 2 brutal years until the house they'd restored together became a museum of absence. After her funeral, Lucas moved through his days like a tenant in his own life. Rooms echoed. Meals went untouched. Silence grew teeth. For 2 years, he survived. He didn't live. Then Linda appeared. She had been 40 when they married. Young enough to bring light back into dim spaces. Old enough to speak fluently in grief. She never rushed him. Never tried to replace Diane. She listened. She touched his arm at the right moments. She cried at the right memories. When she moved into the historic district home, the air changed. Curtains opened. Music returned. The house exhaled. At least, that's what Lucas believed. The dinner table glowed under warm light 7 months after Linda told him she was pregnant. The kind of glow reserved for milestones. For proof that life still moved forward. Lucas sat at the head of the table, fingers wrapped around a glass of wine he barely tasted. The headache behind his eyes pulsed in time with his heartbeat. A dull, relentless pressure that had been stalking him for weeks now. He'd been to the doctor twice. Stress, they said. Overwork. Nothing serious. Across from him sat his daughter, Olivia. 32. Brilliant. Thoughtful. Diane's ghost lived in her gestures. The way she tilted her head when she listened. The way she folded her napkin with deliberate care. Beside her was Trevor Donovan, Olivia's husband and Lucas's vice president. Ambitious. Polished. Capable. The son Lucas never had, or thought he'd gained. Linda moved between them, radiant in the soft, infuriating way pregnancy made women glow. Her hand rested on the curve of her belly, as if protecting something sacred. More wine, honey? She asked, refilling Lucas's glass before he answered. The smell turned his stomach slightly. He ignored it. You okay, Dad? Olivia asked, concern threading her voice. You look pale. I'm fine, Lucas said, forcing a smile. Just tired. You've been tired a lot lately, Linda added gently. Her forehead creased with practiced worry. She reached into her pocket and produced a small bottle. The familiar rattle of capsules echoed faintly. Your vitamins. You forgot them this morning. She shook 2 in her palm. Lucas hesitated for half a second. Not long enough to mean anything. Not long enough to register as instinct. He swallowed them with water. They tasted faintly bitter. Vitamins often did. Linda's face relaxed. Oh, she said suddenly, brightening. Almost forgot. Lucas, the ultrasound appointment is next Tuesday at 10. You'll come with me, won't you? I really want you there. Of course, he said without hesitation. I wouldn't miss it. Trevor smiled across the table. Big moment, Dad. Finding out if it's a boy or a girl. We'll find out together, Linda said, her eyes locking on Lucas's. Warm. Loving. Perfect. The conversation drifted. Olivia talked about a new client at her therapy practice. Trevor mentioned permits finally approved for the Mount Pleasant development. Linda laughed, her fingers brushing Lucas's hand beneath the table. And for a brief, dangerous moment, Lucas felt gratitude. His family. Whole. Happy. Around his table. Except, Trevor's hand lingered on Linda's shoulder when he passed the breadbasket. Just a second too long. Except Linda's phone buzzed 3 times during dinner, and each time she turned it face down without looking. except when Lucas mentioned a hotel charge on the company card. Wentworth Mansion, $847. Trevor's face went still in a way Lucas recognized from tense negotiations. Client dinner, Trevor said quickly. The Harpers from Atlanta. Lucas didn't remember courting the Harpers. But his head hurt. His eyes burned. He told himself he was tired. He took another sip of water. He had no idea he was swallowing poison. 3 days later, the illusion began to crack. Lucas woke before dawn, his body heavy and uncooperative. His joints ached as if filled with wet sand. Nausea rose before his feet hit the floor. Linda was already dressed, watching him struggle upright with concern sculpted perfectly into her face. Everything hurts, he admitted quietly. She was already holding his phone. You're seeing Dr. Mitchell today. I'm calling right now. I'm fine, he said, though the lie tasted stale even to him. You're not, she said softly, her hand settling on his shoulder. Please. For me. Dr. Andrew Mitchell had been Lucas's physician for 15 years. He listened. He nodded. He pressed on Lucas's knees until Lucas winced. Stress, he said finally. You're running an empire. Your body's asking you to slow down. That evening, Linda brought chamomile tea and another vitamin. She kissed his forehead like a caretaker, like a wife. He swallowed it. Later that night, Olivia called to check on him. She mentioned DNA kits she and Trevor planned to use, just for fun, she said. Family history. Harmless curiosity. Something cold settled in Lucas's chest. He remembered Linda's trembling hand at dinner. The look she and Trevor exchanged when DNA was mentioned. The bitter taste of the capsules. His instincts stirred. The same instincts that had built his career, but he smothered them beneath medical reassurance and marital trust. The ultrasound appointment arrived 10 days after that dinner. Charleston Women's Health was quiet, clinical, glowing softly in blue light. Lucas stood beside the bed, holding Linda's hand as the technician moved the wand across her belly. There's the heartbeat, the technician said. Strong. 140 beats per minute. Everything looks beautiful. Linda squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes. Then the technician froze. Her gaze flicked to a second monitor. Lab results instead of images. Something shifted in her expression, subtle but unmistakable. Excuse me, she said quickly. I need to get Dr. Rutherford. Standard protocol. Linda laughed nervously. That's never a good sign, is it? 5 minutes later, Dr. James Rutherford entered. Calm, authoritative, practiced. He studied the screens, then Lucas. The baby is perfectly healthy, he said. But I need to speak with your husband privately. In the small consultation room, the truth waited. DNA results. Paternity confirmed. Biological father, Trevor Donovan. 99.97% probability. The room lost air. Lucas felt 30 years of life collapse inward. Every dinner, every handshake, every swallowed capsule reassembling into clarity. My son-in-law, he whispered. Dr. Rutherford nodded. Mr. Bennett, are you safe at home? Lucas didn't answer that question. When he returned to the ultrasound room, he smiled, kissed Linda's forehead, said the baby was a boy. She cried happy tears. That afternoon, alone in his office, Lucas stared at the ultrasound photo of a child that was not his and called his attorney. The illusion was over. The truth had begun. The house didn't look different after the ultrasound. That was the cruelest part. Sunlight still spilled through the tall windows. The floors still held their polished shine. Linda's shoes still rested neatly by the door. Nothing in the architecture acknowledged that the foundation of Lucas Bennett's life had just fractured beyond repair. He moved through the rooms in silence, carrying the knowledge like a concealed weapon pressed against his ribs. Every familiar surface now felt staged. Every object complicit. The ultrasound photo lay on his desk, a curled silhouette inside a grainy black oval. Proof of life. Proof of betrayal. Linda was at another appointment. Or yoga. Or errands. Lucas no longer trusted the meaning of absence. He locked his office door and began pulling records. Bank statements first. Corporate accounts he knew by heart. He told himself he was looking for confirmation, for an error, a misinterpretation, anything that could soften the truth. But confirmation arrived quickly, eagerly, as if the numbers themselves had been waiting to speak. January. Linda had said she was 10 weeks pregnant. That placed conception in early November. November. Lucas's calendar opened like a confession. November 14th through 16th, Columbia, South Carolina. A commercial real estate summit. 2 nights away. A keynote speech. He remembered the hotel room, the quiet after applause, the way he'd called Olivia to tell her he missed her. That same weekend, Olivia had been in Atlanta visiting a college friend. Trevor had been alone in Charleston. The corporate American Express statement told the rest of the story. November 14th, 6:23 p.m., Wentworth Mansion. $847. Coded as client entertainment. November 15th, 8:47 p.m., Hall's Chop House. Follow-up dinner. Same coding. The Harpers from Atlanta. The phantom clients Trevor had mentioned weeks later over dinner. The ones Lucas didn't remember courting because they'd never existed. Keycard access logs confirmed it. Trevor left the office early on the 14th. No building entry for 2 days. Return on the 16th. 2 days unaccounted for. Lucas checked Linda's personal cards. Nothing. No hotel. No spa. No meals. No gas. No transactions of any kind. She'd told him she was away with friends. A girl's weekend. Wine and massages. The truth was quieter. More deliberate. She hadn't gone anywhere at all. The pattern continued as Lucas dug deeper. December. January. February. Every gap in his travel schedule. Every night Olivia worked late. Every time he'd been medicated, exhausted, trusting. Trevor's corporate card filled the voids. Hotels, dinners, rooms carefully coded as business expenses. Linda's records remained clean. They had designed it that way. By the time his phone buzzed with Linda's cheerful text, "Want me to grab dinner?" Lucas had built a spreadsheet that mapped the affair with ruthless precision. This wasn't recklessness. It wasn't passion overwhelming judgment. It was planning. He typed back, "Sure. Whatever you want." Then he called his attorney. Robert Fleming answered on the second ring. "Lucas, what's wrong?" "I need the best private investigator you know," Lucas said. "And I need him today." 20 minutes later, they sat in a back booth on King Street. Lucas slid the DNA report across the table. Robert read it without speaking. When he looked up, the rage in his eyes startled Lucas. "Jesus Christ. There's more," Lucas said. He showed him the timeline. The charges. The dates. Robert nodded once. "I know someone. Hunter Blake. Ex-major crimes. Quiet. Thorough. If there's anything else to find, he'll find it." Hunter Blake's office sat above a bookstore, reachable only by a narrow staircase. He looked like a man who had cataloged human darkness for decades. Weathered, observant, economical with movement. As Lucas spoke, Hunter listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't react, only wrote. When Lucas finished, Hunter asked one question. "How long have you been feeling sick?" The room tilted slightly. 3 months, Lucas said. Headaches, nausea, fatigue. Hunter's pen paused. "We're adding a medical investigation," he said. "Background check on your wife. Full financial forensic on Trevor. And I want a list of everything you've ingested in the last 3 months." Lucas stared at him. "You think? I don't believe in coincidences." 3 days later, Hunter called. "You need to come in," he said, "and sit down." Photographs covered his desk. Linda's silver Mercedes. Trevor's black Audi. Side by side at the Wentworth Mansion. His hand on her lower back. Her face turned toward his. A kiss that didn't hesitate. Timestamps. Dates. Wednesday. 3 days ago. "This is ongoing," Hunter said. "Not history." The nausea hit Lucas hard. Then Hunter opened another folder. Linda Bennett didn't exist before 2019. The words didn't register. No credit history. No employment records. No address trail. She appeared fully formed. Documents, license, accounts, like a ghost stepping into a body. Hunter slid a death certificate across the desk. Linda Marie Bennett. Born 1994. Died 2014. Motor vehicle accident. The woman Lucas had married was using a dead woman's identity. "And there's more," Hunter said quietly. "Another file. Another man. Richard Peton. Real estate developer. Widower. Married Linda in 2011. Dead 18 months later. Heart failure. Organ collapse. Cremated within 48 hours. Symptoms eerily familiar. When Amanda Peton's voice came through the speakerphone, asking if Linda gave Lucas vitamins, the last pieces locked into place. By the time the toxicology report confirmed culticine in Lucas's blood, the truth no longer hurt. It clarified. He wasn't sick. He was being erased. The Charleston Preservation Society gala loomed 10 days away, and Lucas Bennett decided the truth would no longer hide in shadows. It would stand under chandeliers. Once you accept that someone is trying to end you quietly, the world sharpens. Every sound becomes deliberate. Every gesture acquires weight. Lucas Bennett woke each morning with a new clarity that bordered on cruelty, the kind that strips illusion without offering comfort in return. He moved through his home like a guest who had overstayed his welcome, careful not to disturb the stage set around him. Linda noticed the change. "You seem better," she said one morning, sliding a cup of tea toward him. "More yourself." Lucas smiled. The reflex was automatic now, rehearsed. "I think I finally turned a corner." She watched him closely as he lifted the cup. He pretended to sip, let the liquid touch his lips, then lowered it untouched when she turned away. The vitamins followed the same choreography, palmed, pocketed, flushed later in private. For the first time in months, his body stopped sinking, but his mind descended into something darker. Hunter Blake moved fast and without sentiment. Surveillance expanded. Digital footprints were excavated. Burner phones surfaced. Offshore transfers emerged like submerged bones. The woman calling herself Linda Bennett unraveled into a mosaic of theft, forgery, and practiced disappearance. "She's done this before," Hunter said one evening, files spread across Lucas's desk. "Not exactly like this, but close enough to recognize the signature." The real Linda Bennett, the dead woman, had been the perfect mask. Only child. Parents deceased. Minimal extended family. Enough documentation to resurrect. No one left to object. "Predators don't hunt randomly," Hunter continued. "They select." Lucas thought back to the charity auction where he'd met her. The way she'd known exactly what to say. The timing, 6 months after Diane's death anniversary. The questions she asked that first night. About grief. About legacy. About loneliness. She hadn't fallen into his life. She had entered it. Another call from Hunter came 2 days later. "We found her real name," he said. "Michelle Torres. Shreveport, Louisiana. Multiple fraud arrests under variations of the same pattern. She slips identities when pressure builds. Reinvents herself. Leaves damage behind." Lucas closed his eyes. "And Richard Patton?" he asked. Hunter didn't hesitate. "She killed him." Texas approved the exhumation within days. When the report returned, it confirmed culticine in Richard Patton's remains. The same substance, the same dosage arc, the same slow erasure masquerading as natural decline. The pattern was perfect. Marry a wealthy widower. Integrate. Isolate. Administer. Collect. Disappear. Lucas was alive only because of timing. Only because an ultrasound had intersected with a database. Only because she'd miscalculated. She planned to end it after the baby, Hunter said, pointing to handwritten notes recovered from Linda's closet. "Insurance payout. 60-day window. Came in transfer." Lucas stared at the words written in her familiar looping script. Grocery lists, reminders, death sentences dressed as logistics. Trevor's involvement was no longer ambiguous. He wasn't collateral damage. He was complicit. The affair wasn't an accident. It had structure, cover stories, financial manipulation. Trevor had used Lucas's company to fund his own betrayal, siphoning money with the arrogance of someone who believed himself untouchable. When Lucas finally told Olivia, it broke something sacred between breaths. They sat on a bench overlooking the harbor, sunlight glinting off water that felt too beautiful for what was being spoken. She read the DNA report first, then the photographs. Her hand shook violently. "Since November," Lucas said gently. "Maybe longer." The sound she made wasn't a cry. It was a collapse. "I just wanted the truth," she whispered. "That's all." Lucas pulled her into his arms, felt the weight of her grief soak into his chest. This wasn't just infidelity. It was theft of reality. When she looked up again, her eyes were changed, hardened, focused. "What do we do?" That question sealed it. They didn't confront. They didn't accuse. They didn't flinch. They prepared. For 8 days, Lucas played the role Linda expected. Attentive husband, expectant father, recovering patient. He declined vitamins with casual excuses, smiled through dinners, listened as she spoke about nursery colors and names. Hunter and Robert coordinated quietly. Evidence was duplicated, cataloged, insulated against destruction. Detective Walsh reviewed warrants while pretending not to exist. Charleston continued its polite rhythms, unaware it was approaching a reckoning. Then Linda went into labor. Early, one day before the gala. The call came at 2 in the morning. Lucas drove her to the hospital in silence, held her hand through contractions, counted breaths, maintained the illusion because collapse would have tipped her hand too soon. At 8:47 a.m., a baby boy entered the world. Healthy, loud, innocent. Linda wept. Trevor arrived later, wearing joy like absolution. Olivia stood beside him, flawless in her restraint, watching her husband cradle the child he could never claim. Lucas held the baby last. Warm, real, unaware. "This isn't your fault," Lucas whispered. The plan adjusted instantly. Linda would be in recovery. Trevor would attend the gala alone. Separate takedowns, Lucas told Hunter. Public for him, private for her. That night, as Linda slept beside the child she'd weaponized, Trevor dressed for an event that would end his life as he knew it. High Hernian Hall glowed with chandeliers and champagne. Charleston's elite gathered beneath polished history, unaware they'd become witnesses. Lucas moved through the crowd accepting congratulations, playing his role with surgical calm. At 9 p.m., he stepped to the podium, and truth finally exhaled. The screens ignited. DNA, photos, financial records, a death certificate, a toxicology report. Trevor rose, screaming denial. Officers closed in. Handcuffs clicked. And across town, in a hospital room scented with antiseptic and false security, Michelle Torres felt the future vanish. By the time officers arrived, she knew. Some predators sensed the end. She didn't scream, didn't beg. She only asked about the baby. When they led her away, she didn't look back. The monster had been mapped, dissected, exposed. All that remained was the silence after. The room never fully recovered from the silence. High Hernian Hall, a space built for applause, for legacy speeches and polite admiration, had been hollowed out by truth. Chandeliers still glowed overhead, but the light felt surgical now, exposing rather than flattering. Conversations had collapsed into whispers. Phones hovered in trembling hands. History was being recorded in real time, and everyone in the room knew it. Trevor Donovan stood restrained near the aisle, wrists cuffed, suit rumpled, face stripped of every advantage charm had ever given him. He didn't shout anymore, didn't argue. The moment resistance had drained from him, replaced by something far worse than anger. Recognition. Olivia rose from her chair. Someone passed her a microphone. She took it without hesitation, her movements calm, almost ceremonial. When she spoke, her voice carried, clear, unwavering, devastating. "I loved you," she said, looking directly at Trevor. "I trusted you. I wanted a family with you. You chose betrayal instead." She paused, breath steady. "I'm filing for separation tomorrow, and I thank God we never had children together." The room erupted, not in cheers, but in release. Applause broke out like a wave, less celebration than acknowledgement. Women stood. Men nodded grimly. Constance Sheffield rushed forward to wrap Olivia in an embrace. The mayor shook Lucas's hand, eyes full of something between awe and sorrow. Outside, cameras waited. Inside, a life ended. Across town, the hospital room was quiet. Michelle Torres, still wearing Linda Bennett's face, sat propped against white pillows, scrolling through congratulatory messages from people who didn't yet know she no longer existed. The baby slept beside her, wrapped in blue, unaware that his future had just been severed from hers. The door opened. She looked up, expecting a nurse. Instead, 2 uniformed officers stepped inside, followed by Detective Walsh. Her smile froze mid-curve. "What's wrong?" she asked quickly. "Is my husband okay?" Walsh's voice was professional, flat. "Linda Bennett, or whatever your real name is, you're under arrest." Her expression fractured. "For what?" she demanded. "Attempted murder. Conspiracy. Identity theft. Fraud. Forgery." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Your husband exposed everything tonight, in front of 200 witnesses." For a moment, she said nothing. Then something dark and feral surfaced beneath the mask. Calculation stripped bare. "Where's Trevor?" she asked. "In custody," Walsh replied. "Arrested 7 minutes ago." That was when she understood. The baby stirred softly in the bassinet. "What about my son?" she asked, her voice tight. "Social services has custody pending family court," Walsh said. "He'll be safe." They cuffed her gently, efficiently. She didn't resist. She didn't cry. As they led her away, she glanced once at the child, not with love, but with loss of utility. The door closed. The story detonated before midnight. Charleston awoke to headlines it had never imagined reading. Reporters lined Lucas's street. Cameras camped outside courtrooms. Analysts dissected motives, methods, psychology. Lucas said nothing. He focused on Olivia. The legal machinery moved fast. Bail was denied. Flight risk declared extreme. Michelle Torres appeared via video, hair pulled back, face blank, her charm useless without context. Trevor's parents paid his bail, but disowned him publicly before the ink dried. Olivia filed for separation within days. The baby entered foster care, then adoption proceedings. Texas reopened Richard Peton's case. Exhumation confirmed everything. Additional charges followed. Michelle Torres received life without parole. Twice. Trevor accepted a plea deal. 12 years. When he looked at Olivia during sentencing, she didn't look back. 6 months later, Lucas stood in his kitchen on a quiet morning, sunlight filtering in without accusation. His health had fully returned. No more headaches. No more nausea. The poison was gone. So was the illusion. He had established a foundation in Diane's name, focused on identifying slow burn abuse, coercive control, medical deception, training doctors to see what stress sometimes hides. Olivia returned to her practice, specializing in betrayal trauma. Helping others rebuild had helped her rebuild herself. The baby was adopted by Amanda Peton, Richard's sister, who held him as both inheritance and redemption. "He deserves a life unshadowed," she said. Lucas visited Diane's grave on a cool November afternoon. Magnolia leaves rustled overhead. "I survived," he said softly. "And so did our daughter." The house no longer felt haunted. Sunday brunch with Olivia became tradition. Conversations shifted toward the future. New projects, new relationships, healing without denial. Scars remained, but scars meant survival. Lucas shared his story not for sympathy, but as warning. Predators exist, but so does providence. And sometimes, truth arrives disguised as tragedy, arriving exactly when it must, under flickering fluorescent lights, when a doctor's hands begin to shake. Because the most dangerous lies don't shout. They smile. And the most powerful justice doesn't scream. It simply steps into the light.